As, ooh, is it going to be more assassins? They've already got 2. They need the 3rd for the set bonus, and that is it. Kha'Zix locked in.
And you say you like the scaling, that you like the fact that they're going to get some form of normalcy in their draft. And I just think, how do you survive against the current lineup that GAM have if you don't have any proactivity in their lane? It's going to be on Humanoid to generate some form of pressure here. He will go towards a LeBlanc, but I feel like so much of this early game, once again, is on Xerxe and Humanoid to be able to generate any kind of push in the mid lane, because otherwise the map will just collapse.
And I mean, that's honestly Splyce's MO. That is generally how they do actually play it out. And funnily enough, we may end up getting the Tristana mid, and if I actually got all 3 of those right, then I'm shocked. But you know, certainly some ability to actually swap these around, and it is going to be non-standard, right? It is going to be Syndra playing in the bottom lane. Would be surprised if they don't actually move the Trist up to the top lane, but you know, certainly you can play that Tristana mid very effectively, and if you are going to...
Summoner's Rift awaits as we close out day 1 of the world's group stage for the battle between GAM Esports and Splyce from the LEC. This is going to be a very interesting battle. Number 1 team from Vietnam, number 3 from Europe. Splyce fighting through the regional qualifier. A short run of the playoffs, but made them work for it and got all the way to Worlds, got through the play-in stage, fought that one valiantly as well. GAM, oh, very strong team. Crushed the playoffs, put a new roster together. This split, swapped in 2 new players, role swapped 2 more.
Yeah, look, the website I normally use for my stats, GOL, is an absolute mess. Like, there's just champions and picks everywhere on this GAM lineup. And, you know, we've got role swaps, we've got 2 separate supports playing 3 games each throughout their playoff run as well. However, they did have a really good split once they found any form of consistency in their lineup. And, you know, just to continue the narrative, they also deal well with a chaos-style League of Legends. They've had Loki kind of throw all the questions at them as well. So this is a team that not only plays really quick and explosive themselves, but also can deal with the style very well in the VCS. Now, what we don't see a lot in the VCS is that slow down the frustration style. And we don't necessarily see it all that much in the LEC anymore, but I think that that is certainly more of Splyce's MO.
Yeah, and it has been, you know, their kind of play style for quite some time. And, you know, they do not necessarily play against teams as kind of as crazy as GAM, but there are extremely proactive, very aggressive teams like Fnatic, like G2 that they are having to deal with. And, you know, honestly, they have not dealt well with them. But the question is GAM of that caliber? Are they able to, you know, run over Splyce in the early game like some of these other great LEC teams can do?
And I mean, the serious answer is no, right? G2 defending MSI champions coming in, and they are one of the favorites to win the entirety of the tournament. So it's not necessarily a slight as Kiaya.
Nice trade. Yeah, Rocket jumps in for the slow, gets a 3-stack and explosive charge, Humanoid at 120 HP.
Yeah, honestly, anytime you can press the attack with your E up, you are going to have a winning trade. It's almost impossible for most champions to actually fight back into this. We are seeing Chachi, though, you know, handling this top lane pretty well, utilizing the grass to actually poke out Xerxe. And Xerxe really just needs to get the wave in the turret and base. He needs to get a reset off here, and that is why he's trying to shove so heavily, but his jungler's not up here. He knows that Xerxe could be, and this is actually a pretty difficult spot for him. He's kind of putting himself at risk.
He doesn't have his E skill just yet. Needs 2 more minions till he gets the dash to get away. Has the stealth, waiting for that cooldown as the blue's going to be taken. Levi is around, sees, okay, Gragas is not in the river, so you're pretty safe to push this one in, which means he can burn the W. That Scryer's Bloom allowed him to burn the stealth, get a little bit of extra energy, try to complete that shove, and this should be the wave he can push in. And Xerxe could come around. They actually would have seen the Scryer's Bloom if they were watching. Levi on the other side, they now see the Kha'Zix. He doesn't see Gragas. I don't know if there's going to be any engage, but as he walks back, now in through the backside, no spotting it again, jumps over, takes some damage. Xerxe just going back to his side of the map.
Yeah, Chachi actually did a really good job manipulating the minions, kind of stepping forward and allowing himself to tank a little bit of the range minion aggro, so it didn't fully get into the turret, and it did put Xerxe in a pretty awkward spot, but you know, has been able to stay healthy enough, and now with Chachi out of mana, it's going to be able to be comfortably pushed in.
Yeah, I completely agree. And additionally, Kiaya had so much presence in the mid lane that he was able to join the play as Hook does land bottom side.
That's a stun as well. Decent damage going across there. Ooh, that's a minion. Just gets in the way. Norskeren can't find a champ.
And that's what League of Legends has become so much about, you know, not creating these one-on-one matchups, but being able to bring that additional member, being able to float your pressure from your winning lanes into the losing sides of the map and being able to impact. That's why I thought Humanoid would go for something very aggressive. Obviously, LeBlanc, once level 6 is reached, should have kill threat on this Tristana, but with Press the Attack, with Ignite, pre-6, I feel like this should be a very good lane for Kiaya.
It certainly can be, and honestly, even post-6, if you're willing to itemize for the matchup, go for things like an early Hex Drinker, it can be difficult for LeBlanc to actually have enough damage to fully push through that shield, you know, until you are kind of further on into the game.
And even on top of that, he's running bone plating, right? He's got some defensive, you know, stats in here as well. 40 magic resist, has the, you know, the 1 rune and the MR as well. So, you know, decently poised to survive a lot of this all in. It is Ignite Trist after all, of course, just mid lane Ignite Trist.
And I think that, you know, when you're talking about Gragas as well, the defensive itemization does make a lot of sense. You know, you're going to be playing against double MR, and I think that, you know, this has been a very standard and good early game so far for Splyce. They were able to protect the Gangplank. They looked for an early opportunity, but weren't able to make it work. Red buff was stolen away, but now with Predator boots up and available, you would expect Xerxe to look to make his first real meaningful, impactful gank on the map. As long as you keep your flash and have Predator on Gragas, he's nearly unrivaled with the amount of damage that he brings to these early game skirmishes.
He certainly is, but I think something that Splyce may be considering is just utilizing Xerxe more for counter gank, because if you are the ones to actually start this fight off, and this Kha'Zix is there to actually, you know, answer that gank, Kha'Zix can certainly burst down, you know, a squishy Gragas so incredibly fast. And that is the kind of play that Levi is going to be looking for. These isolated fights and these fights where he can actually answer and have people kind of opting in and committed to it and then look for the engage.
Especially against mid lane priority, right? So you're going to have to look at every single fight in. If Xerxe can't kill them before Kiaya's roam is there, then it's a losing fight. So every time he goes for one of these ganks or one of these shadows, he has to know that it's potentially a 2v3.
A couple of biscuits for Chachi, puts the ult on in, and now Xerxe has to jump backwards, finds the E, nice body slam flash. There's the flash to follow, and out he's gonna go, flash for flash.
Yeah, really good timing on that gank because Xerxe was not yet 6, so he has to actually commit the flash, and even though he was late on it, Levi playing this Kha'Zix can easily solo out the dragon on the other side of the map, and getting an Ocean at 630 is so big for your laning phase. It almost gives you like a get out of jail free out in any hard matchup, and this is gonna be feeling very, very good, really across the board.
And I think the main benefactor for this is going to be Zin on the Syndra. He's already gone double Doran's ring. Now with an Ocean Drake being so far away from the blue buff isn't really going to impact the Syndra. That's one of the weaknesses of the early game of the bottom lane mages and should shore that up.
Yeah, it certainly does. And even for the Akali, you know, champions without mana, people often look to and say, all right, well, the Ocean doesn't really do much for you. But in a match where you actually have the push, you can absorb the poke here from GP while you're actually spending all your energy, spending the Shroud to push it out, and then simply back up and regen, you know, with that Ocean Dragon. So certainly a nice takeaway. And this is going to be feeling good this early on in the game.
That was really cute from Norskeren. He walks out of base directly towards mid lane. They time it up with Humanoid just dipping forward for some wave clear. They're looking for Tristana to be able to leap in there, go for an all in. Norskeren would have been there for the counter again, getting out of lane early, making sure that he's supporting the other waves. And he's also on a really good timing on Kobbe's reset, so no punish in the bottom lane. I think that's the kind of fluidity that we've come to, you know, expect out of the LEC team.
Yeah, certainly the case, but you can see Hugh 3, you know, he's also looking to roam, has the full Moby Boots buy here early on. We have been seeing more and more in competitive people actually opting for the support item upgrade, looking to get more gold generation in the early game. So, you know, Hugh 3 is going to have to try to make some plays to justify this buy instead of just upgrading for your Targons.
Because you have to think about how Pyke warps map state and what he wants to actually be able to do. So normal supports, they want the gold generation because so much of their gold is based off the back of that. So much of Pyke's gold is actually off his ultimate, so wants to be involved in these skirmishes.
Oh, pulls him right out, though. That's going to be not really much of anything, as he's still too far away to get hit by anyone else, but actually yanked him right out of that dash. Now, a fight in the top side. Blocks him away. Trade of blows everywhere, though. Humanoid, ouch, down to 2/3, but Kiaya hit pretty hard as well, and now here comes Xerxe.
Yeah, Xerxe does have his ultimate, so Kiaya has to be very careful here.
Far enough back, he's going to stay alive as the turret's going to deny that CS, but regardless, Splyce getting some damage across.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't knock down this Trist, he has the Dorans, the Vamp, and the Ocean now kicking in, so he is going to sustain back up quite quickly here, and that's something that's, you know, going to be problematic for Humanoid if he cannot actually threaten the 100 to 0. Tristana really does start to win out in these mage matchups simply because of your sustain.
This was a great team up. This is unspotted so far. Remember, they have the perfect timing on the red buff from the steal early.
Top instead, it's warded, so now it's time for Chachi to run away, but a 3v1 dive could still happen. They don't have any way to land the skewer as those minions are in the way. The ward goes down, the red buff started, but Xerxe knows you can't really take this one as you get some damage on a Levi, but still with Q3 there, it's 4 numbers for GAM.
Yeah, and Kiaya actually pushed in mid, so not going to be any ability to actually challenge here. But that being said, Levi is establishing a CS advantage. Not sure it's quite enough yet to really justify this Kha'Zix pick, so he does want to try to make some plays, and they're looking to threaten a 3v2.
And a big dive in the bottom side, so much burst damage there. First blood comes across for Kobbe.
And beautifully played, diving onto Chachi, not an option. He has the ult, he has the backup from Xerxe. However, they do have good numbers on the bottom side of the map, and that was just flawlessly executed.
Yeah, and I love this from Splyce. They knew that Pyke was up on the top side, and honestly, Q3 kind of overstayed his welcome. You have Xerxe there behind Vizicsacsi, defending any potential dive, and that just allowed Norskeren and Kobbe to set up such an easy dive. When you have level 6 on the Nautilus, there's really no escaping that from Zin.
And especially when you get multiple waves to do it, right? You spot him out first on the control ward, then he sticks around for the red invade, then he goes back for the top lane dive. That is at least 2 waves that you're going to be able to just force them in. And Zin doesn't want to respect because he doesn't want to fall behind on Syndra, such a powerful mid-game mage. Tried to step up, tried to get greasy, and was punished for it.
Yeah, it certainly was. And honestly, thus far, Splyce looking like a Karate Kid. Wax on, wax off. They're absorbing all the blows. They're not, allowing GAM to find any ins really across the map. And this is, I think, exactly the kind of game you want to see Splyce playing if you are, an LEC fan.
Well, Zeros has to get away from Chachi, who's back to full HP, and push them off. 400, sorry, actually only a 200 gold difference now in this one. And the Ocean Drake doesn't pay as many dividends late game. It pays off in the early laning, which now going a bit Splyce's way right here. Again, that bot lane dive really well done. As we pressed 11 minutes into the game, Mountain Drake spawning in 30 seconds. The Rift Herald already alive. We'll see if someone plays for top side to make that one happen.
And this is one of those games that I feel like the Splyce comp, while it doesn't necessarily outscale, does have a very easy execution philosophy. You just kite back, use all the control of the Gangplanks, of the Ezreal, to be able to chunk out your opponent. They can't really start many objectives against you. As soon as you have the chunks there, it's very easy to also go forward on these compositions. So I would expect GAM to try and change something up here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, while there is some pretty good scaling with Tristana and so on and so forth, the major problem for GAM in the late game is how do you start a fight, right? Is Kha'Zix just going to jump in? No, there's incredible engage on the side of Splyce, and when you're the team that gets to dictate when you fight and when you do not fight, that is such an incredible advantage. And between Gragas and Nautilus, you can choose your moments, whereas GAM needs side lane advantages because that is really the only way to kind of force the hand of Splyce.
And some tanks that have good engage, hold the thought, don't have terrific disengage. You think about an Ornn. He's not all that great on the disengage, one of the best engage ultimates in the game. However, both Gragas and Nautilus are very good disengage champions as well. So they don't have necessarily the tools to force a fight. Splyce have good answers in response to the tools they do have, like the lockdown guaranteed CC onto something like an Akali. And, they've been able to get control of the map to this point. Now we'll take their first dragon.
And speaking of Akali, Zeros is killing a minion wave behind the tier 2 turret up in the top lane, now walking his way down because he had no TP, but he's still not going to be there in time. Mountain Drake will go cleanly over here to Splyce. Zeros is going for farm. He knows Mountain Drake, by the way, is the weakest Drake in the game right now, and says, okay, we'll sacrifice that. I'm going to take an extra minion wave, an extra monster camp here instead, try to be one of the carriers of the side lane, because to your point about engage, 5v5, not going to happen.
Yeah, certainly not. And thus far, GAM has not been able to really establish any major advantages. The Kha'Zix has, been kind of left blank here in the early game. And, you do start to get worried here for the Marines. If they're not able to kind of enforce their playstyle on their opponents, are they able to actually match Splyce in team fighting? And that's something that's really going to remain to be seen.
And Kha'Zix and Nocturne are two of the most interesting champions in the mid-game when it comes to these 1-3-1s. We've already talked about, the fact that Splyce probably have the edge in team fights, a little bit of ease of execution due to the tanky members, right? However, Kha'Zix, especially once he gets the R-Evolve, is one of the best champions. Hook is on.
A lot of CC. There might not be a way out, and Kiaya goes down.
With jump, with flash, everything available. Kiaya just cannot get out of there. Really great layering of CC from Splyce.
Yeah, and I think honestly intelligent to not use the flash once he was out of the CC because he was so low, and now Splyce looking for Zeros.
What a cast, but the E was already primed. Zeros played that so well to have an out button. Has to jump away still. The ult was burned regardless.
People will remember Xerxe from his time on Fongu Buffalo. This is a guy that we hyped up for so many worlds, and then it was actually the bottom lane that were able to do some damage. However, this is once again a player that is returning in great form. We talked about the fact that GAM do like to play around top and jungle, and Xerxe is looking to right a lot of those wrongs from international tournaments. Good navigation of a gank there, however, is under significant pressure as Splyce do rotate up to this top side of the map.
Yeah, and taking the Rift as they are doing this, Syndra is now actually going to TP up top side to try to defend this, but Rift Herald pretty much already gone here for Splyce, and yes, it is post-turret plates, but they can still look to actually push for that first turret with this.
All right, there's going to be some gold in the pockets, then still only a 400 gold difference. GAM laning pretty well despite the kills coming through for Splyce, but you have to imagine, yeah, about 700 comes in if you can get that Herald charge and knock down first turret for yourselves. Next Phreak spawning is Infernal. That's actually going to require some attention, so that 5-on-5 at about 17 minutes in is going to be a pretty big deal.
And this group is now just insane. You know, with J-Team picking up the victory over FPX and Splyce with ease navigating this early game from GAM, which was pretty stock standard, to be completely frank, now really makes you question, you know, what the strengths and weaknesses and how the game is going to play out. It feels like this longer, more extended pressure style of meta that we're seeing at World so far certainly is not in the chaos style of FPX and GAM, which should have been able to throw a lot of this group into big questions.
Yeah, it certainly is, and you know, especially with GAM, if they are not, going to be opting into kind of that style, I think especially for them, even more so than FPX, that really was kind of the pony they rode to get to Worlds. FPX did always have, very strong late game team fighting. Obviously not in their first match, but now Xerxe getting found here by Levi and will be pushed out of the jungle, but nothing more than that, and maybe getting collapsed on.
Gonna get the blast plant though. He's gonna get pretty far before the knockup comes in. Jumps now as well, but yeah, no one else is in range to chase that one down. No way Kobbe is gonna arcane shift over that wall to be isolated by the rest of the squad. So able to jump out in time, but does lose the ult.
But once again, that's kind of the first real aggressive move that we've seen out of Levi, trying to look for a kill as opposed to just a buff denial. And it was rebuffed very simply, multiple members heading over, protecting the jungler. And this is what we expect out of Splyce. Xerxe is such a loud voice on the team in their comms, and just being able to ensure that he's not getting punished. Sure, he's down CS, but the job of Gragas is very easy in these comps.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I mean, I think, though Levi hasn't really been doing much of any fighting, I don't think it's really for lack of a trying, right? They're trying to set these plays up on the top side. They're trying to set up opportunities to actually, go for dives or have a fight at the red buff. Splyce is warding it out. Splyce is actually, sacrificing those buffs and sacrificing those camps when they are not in a position to actually win those fights very intelligently. So they're handling this quite well.
See the farm for Levi at least doing quite a lot there. Had about 800 gold over his opponent in Xerxe, and now 900 gold lead for Splyce overall, and he actually sends them in that brush. Kiaya in a bad spot, can't do the damage, but the cask, flash, ignites still enough though. The kill comes through Splyce. 3-0.
And Splyce throw everything. There was a kitchen sink in there somewhere as well. Double stack minion wave, Rift Herald going to be dropped, and now the gold lead should start to open up.
And I'm pretty sure it was that lane ward that was in the middle of the lane that must have spotted him walking into the brush because he distorted in there. It seemed like Humanoid had full knowledge that Tristana would be lying in wait, and that is a great kill to grab for them. They have the Rift Herald that still needs to be answered, and they're pushing mid.
They're pushing mid, trying to get some damage done. The pull comes in. They still got a decent minion wave, but they're not going to push in the mid lane. Instead, they're going to let that Herald keep pushing to the top side. Now, the attempt, though, is Norskeren takes a bit of damage, and this Drake is alive. It's going to maybe have to be fought for. You can see Levi's on this side, but they are sending Kiaya. Now, he went top side, and he's turning back around. He's really wants to fight for this Drake, and I think we'll see top take some damage as a result. No one's willing to play top side. Goodbye! A solo kill for Humanoid. He's 3-0.
Yeah, sitting 3-0, has the Ludens, has a large rod on top of that, and oh my god.
And we said that, if there were two players, hold the thought.
Oh, this is going to be a lot of damage. He's going to, just kidding, it's none.
Good sidestep.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nicely done. And I said, if there was going to be two players that would actually, thrive in this style of game that could propel Splyce to the early game advantage, it was going to be Humanoid and Xerxe. And so far, both of them have actually had really, really good early games. The ability to track around Levi, and now the solo kills and the pressure of LeBlanc on the map. Certainly towards the win conditions of Splyce.
And such a critical kill because it's not just that, but they had pressure on the top side from the Rift Herald. They get the Infernal as an added bonus because there's no way that GAM can actually take that fight once you've lost your Pyke for free. So Splyce looking to be in full control despite the fact that the gold is close. That is largely the farm advantage actually coming out here from Levi as well as Xerxe. But with the scaling edge that I think you are seeing in some of these roles, and also with the ability to kind of dictate when and where you're fighting, with the hard engage that we saw showcased in mid lane to actually kill Kiaya, Splyce is looking great. And
so much respect given from Splyce just there. You saw, without any members showing on mid lane, back away from the top side of the map. Chachi, just go take yourself a pair of Krugs. I don't need this at this stage of the game. Only pushing in bottom lane. A hard split of the map also coming out now from the Splyce lineup. I think that, this is where you can frustrate a team like the Marines and, ensure that the game pace does slow down and continue to track in Splyce's favor.
Still might be fast, though, for them as Humanoid's going to look for some more to do. Meanwhile, though, the rest of the squad down on the bottom side, they've found where Xerxe is. He forced a flash over the wall. 3 gold down to the bottom lane, though. Top turret will go over, so GAM getting some money on this one. Only a 1,200 gold difference, but bot will be answered all the same as Humanoid continues to stack up gold, and no one at all has magic resist. This LeBlanc is lethal to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Kiaya, because he is kind of behind quite a bit here in gold, not actually feeling like he has the ability to kind of make that sidestep towards some MR, right? If you go for the Hex Drinker now, do you have enough damage to deal with the rest of the team and actually threaten that while sitting on just the Blade of the Rune King? And he's certainly making the call that he does not. He doesn't have actually the luxury to look for that.
And that just means that now it's nearly impossible to deal with Humanoid, right? Because you don't want to be sending Xerxe into that lane either. We've already talked about how it is difficult for the Akali to deal with it, and it's 3 kills. That's an out-of-control lead. So I think that this is what we're going to see more of. Very heavy weak side from Chachi, burning the ultimate to protect the waves, making sure that they're always trading up, and GAM continually running into the jungle, trying to look for these skirmishes and fights away from Humanoid.
Yeah, and I think if you're GAM, you're hoping that Xerxe can keep up this pressure, right? Despite the fact that he has been pushed away a number of times, still up 30-odd CS, will be knocking down the turret here. And you're hoping that Xerxe can actually buy time for Kiaya to hit, 3 items, to have the IE, the rapid fire, and then start going for those luxury items and allowing to get themselves into that position where maybe they can take a fight.
Not quite going to get that pull. It's going to be safe recalls now for the Splyce side. As we wait for the next phase of action. Mountain Drake number 2 going to spawn in 2 minutes. There's Baron already alive here as well. Splyce not pushing too heavily for the vision control yet, but those objectives are on the menu soon. Whoop. A little bit of poke.
And I like the continued fishing from Humanoid. The ability to continually just arc the pressure, push people back in lanes. We keep speaking about the fact that Kiaya has scaling on his side, but if Humanoid continues to generate this pressure for Kobbe, for Chachi as well, certainly no slouches in that scenario. And I think that, potentially eyes will turn towards the Baron. We can see a potential setup coming out from here. You do have to respect the Blade of the Rune King, the Kha'Zix, as well as the fact that if you don't have a way to engage a fight, normally the best way to do that is control the area around the Baron buff.
Yeah, I mean, while I think Splyce is kind of holding all the cards, if you do actually misnavigate some of these fights, if you pull off a poor engage, there are 3 assassins on the team of GAM, plus this Syndra, which, essentially is kind of acting like an assassin as well. So if you misposition, if you overdive and have these assassins getting back onto Kobbe, onto Humanoid, onto Vizicsacsi, they can go down in a hurry. So Splyce is certainly wanting to play it safe, wanting to make sure they have full vision and control before they opt into really any of these fights.
And they're just doing it so easily at the moment. You saw that, force away from the top side, make sure that there's no rotation into the mid lane, take down an additional turret. This is a Splyce that has complete control over the map state at the moment and aren't really looking all that concerned with anything that GAM are doing. I think that this is a pretty convincing game so far with not many mistakes coming across, apart from that barrel chain.
Sure, but the only way you lose this game is if you get assassinated.
He was anticipating the auto.
Yep. Either way, the only way you drop is the assassins. There's a lot of them here, but they aren't finding purchase at all. 0 kills for GAM. A couple of turrets, they got a Drake, but not killing the champions themselves, and now surrounded is Xerxe. His health bar exactly that.
And this is what we've seen all game, is now Levi in trouble.
Gets some damage, but Humanoid just far stronger. Nowhere on the map is GAM strong here.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what happens when you miss some spells. Imagine if he had have connected everything. Levi would have gone down. That could have been a Baron setup, however. I think that this rotation from Splyce has just been so clean this game. Every time a member is past River, it just looks like they have complete awareness of where he is, knows that they can collapse and take them off. And if that happens, in a couple more minutes, especially with the double mountain starting to farm up, that is a very clear avenue to a Baron and victory for Splyce.
Yeah, it certainly is. And, you know, part of the problem here for GAM is, you know, even if you have your support moving over to Xerxe, there's no real clear way to actually start the fight. And this is why I love how Splyce is actually playing this out. Just moving Xerxe around, grouping up with him, knowing that they have that hard engage. And that is just a great body slam, knocking him out of the air there, you know, setting him up for Kobbe to grab that kill.
And it's all about information first. You know, don't just go to your waves, don't get collapsed on, always go for the information. Let's find out where the laners are before we actually try and push things out past the river. And that is such an important lesson for League of Legends players to learn. You can see that Xerxe, one of the veterans, you know, we questioned how he went in the play-ins, but certainly having a good performance so far. 0-0-1 into Xerxe and Levi, into the area of the map that we thought they were going to attack. You know, Pyke up into his lane multiple times in that laning phase. First 2 red buffs stolen away from Xerxe. Played a very good weak side on the Gangplank, and now is at the position of the game, you know, going towards that more as his second item, going to be very effective in these team fights.
As the wards drop down, Baron's starting to be controlled here on the Splyce side. Double Mountain make it drop a little bit faster than usual, as 2,500 gold puts them well in the driver's seat here. Levi waiting in the brush, hoping that Humanoid steps too far forward. But is he concerned with taking the fight at all? That answer is no. Now finally jumps across. Huge damage on the LeBlanc, flashing away but burning down. And finally a kill on the board. A flash out for Norskeren now as well. Is this the turn for GAM as they try to find the Bone Skewer? Goes the wrong direction. Norskeren can flash over the wall, and he will.
He has no flash.
But there's no way out, so Baron will slowly kill him with no exit. Slowly but surely, he will indeed die, and he will drop. Xerxe gets the credit now out of that one.
And that is just a huge pick there from Levi. What a play. Utilizing that Duskblade Warrior. Big power spike right here for him right now. And yes, Humanoid is incredibly strong. Yes, he puts out a massive amount of damage, but there's no survivability on this LeBlanc either. And the challenging smite burn there, looking like it was able to finish him off. And this is just Norskeren not able to get out of the back of this pit. Didn't have his flash, and the back spike's just slowly going to knock him down. You can see Kobbe flexing his muscles a bit there, though. He's sitting on 3 items and almost able to actually knock down Q3 right there.
Yeah, you can see that the funnel of gold into Xerxe will continue. They need this Akali to be big, but you mentioned, you know, the ability for Kobbe to just sit there, stand and deliver, no real threat. And that's what happens when you're running no frontline versus Ezreal. This is a Trinity Force Ezreal as well that is going to be pumping out so much DPS. And I love to talk about Ezreal the way people used to talk about AFLOX, right? It's about the amount of uptime that you actually have in these team fights. Sure, if you stand and deliver, other people do out DPS him. However, in this ability to navigate, his uptime and his DPS is so damn high.
Well, the Baron has been started in Fog of War. Splyce trying to rush it down. Levi is around! But it's going to be Xerxe grabbing the smite. So now with Baron on, this could be a battle. Humanoid trying to kite away. Jumps on, flashed. A lot of damage, but he'll survive through the explosive charge. Humanoid running out. He's going to stay alive. Jumps over the wall. Baron, no death. Splyce get the victory on that.
And that was a really decisive Baron take there for Splyce as Xerxe looks to continue the fight.
No way in, though. You can see the disengage there, the explosive, not even explosive cast, just the regular barrel for the slow gets the disengage.
Yeah, and that is just a great call from Splyce. The confidence to rush it down. They're able to get the secure. Levi not able to steal it away. And the one thing that looked like it was going to go right for GAM in that fight was Kiaya perhaps taking down Humanoid, but he didn't get the Buster Shot off. And I think that was the passive. LeBlanc going into the passive and then losing sight when that Buster Shot would have been the final damage to actually take her down.
Yeah, and it certainly looked like the wind-up animation went through, but not the continuation because of exactly what you're talking about now. And we've already mentioned, you know, if you don't have great wave clear, if you don't have the ability to start the fights, how do you deal with the Baron buff? And Splyce recognize that and just march it down mid lane.
They trade the mid lane, no problem right there, so it keeps the gold lead pretty solid. The gap was closing, but with Baron picked up, it's stretched right back again, and Splyce will have 2 minutes to work with. Like to drop many more turrets, already on 4, but they're going to grow that by a couple, you have to believe. Mountain Drake will spawn and be claimed during this Baron buff as well. But wait for that is, yeah, Q3 gonna get chunked. And flashes, he wasn't sure he could live through True Shot Barrage.
And once again, this is just good fundamental League of Legends from Splyce. Wait until the Kha'Zix shows. Wait until you have eyes on the Akali on bottom lane. Now they're looking to re-aggress. They're looking to cut the minion wave and continue the siege.
Yeah, and traditionally you'd say, all right, well, they have someone down in the bot lane. GAM need to engage. But how, right? You know, unless you can get some sort of a flank, there's not really any way to actually walk straight into these champions.
And normally it's flash on someone, but all the flashes are down. They've been fighting and they've been losing, and that means that it's nearly impossible to be able to start these up.
Big chunk in the mid lane down to 1/3. Stun means a little bit, but not a lot, as the cannon minion still charging. Kobbe gets the auto attack in. There's another turret going down, and it's already up to 6. 3 turrets claimed during the Baron buff as bot lane was being split pushed by Chachi as well. He has a red buff. Zeros can try to defend him. That's not going to go well either.
Yeah, I mean, Chachi now has his Essence Reaver, a big 2-item spike for him. The Death Cap came through for Humanoid. So, you know, these solo laners for Splyce are not messing around, and they are pushing in. This should be their mid inhibitor, you have to feel like, as they can just continually poke away, play it slow. It's on GAM to make something happen, and they just don't have the tools to do so.
Yeah, and I feel like that flash... Oh, actually, they go bottom side.
It's going to be a 3v1 here for Chachi. Tries to cut away. Ulti still charged. The Ian as well. A lot of damage available. Trying to chase. They don't quite get the first slow, but Zeros almost dead. He's burning down. Kobbe claims it. Flash and a Ruin King, but now he's jumped up by himself. Shut down by one of the assassins. Now they're re-engaged towards Levi. Does not have the health bar left. That's the kill picked up. Norskeren pops a stopwatch. The team must disengage, but they've got the rest of the squad coming around. Xerxe explosive casts back in Zin, and he a second kill in for Humanoid, and it's only Hu3 left alive. Only 1 kill, and it means the push can continue into the bottom lane.
And Splyce just wiped GAM off the map. That was one of those chaos-style fights. However, everyone from Splyce on the same page. They wanted to rotate, they wanted to fight, and they will take game 1.
Splyce absolutely the better team. This group looking like Splyce going to be the ones to watch for now. They will grab the first win of the group stage for the LEC. They will strike down GAM Esports in their first matchup, and we end the day with the European team winning on home soil.
I've got to say, a damn good performance here from Humanoid to start off the group stage for Splyce, looking very good throughout this game. Really the kind of most notable proactive member here, making things happen, getting chunk outs, and even that pick in the final moments, corralling GAM, coming in from behind and just erasing the Tristana off the map.
And if you're going to have a game that goes for 30 minutes and there's only 12 kills, and it's GAM versus Splyce, I could tell you with a lot of confidence that that is going to be Splyce picking up the victory. And so much of today's play has just been built around, can we play the game at our pace? Can we impose our will on it? We saw that out of TL, we saw it out of J-Team in our final match of the day. We also saw that in spades from Splyce. This is a young team coming onto the world stage. That would be a big confidence booster that they can play their style of League of Legends and they can make it work.
Yeah, it really is so much for their confidence, especially coming out against UOL, people doubting them, being able to take down GAM in a very decisive game 1 here, and having seen FPX just fall to J-Team, you've got to be feeling like Splyce, hey, we could win this group.
Yeah, which is pretty incredible. We knew that the group was likely to be wide open from the second place perspective, but I mean, Splyce handled GAM first of all, so if there's not some way back in for that one, this seems like a matchup that'll repeat itself. Handedly the better squad. The other teams have to see, you know, was this a one-time thing or not, but Splyce have to be feeling very good. They have to feel every team in this group now is beatable, and their eyes should be on the prize.
And Splyce have shown a great bar to me throughout play-ins and now into this first game. However, GAM also need to go away from this and say, our draft needs a lot more respect in it. You can't give Chachi maybe his best champion, especially if we're going to play towards attacking that top side of the map. So I think there are certainly key takeaways. A lot of this was on Summoner's Rift, but a little bit more preparation going into this, I think would have gone a long way for GAM.
Yeah, I really agree. And, you know, the creativity was there, but, you know, no ways to actually force fights. And that really is the trademark of GAM. This is the team that wants to fight you, that wants to make things happen, and perhaps too used to their opponents in the VCS opting into those fights as well, where a composition like this, you're going to have the other team scrapping with you, and maybe you're making those things happen. You're snowballing that lead just through mechanical outplays. But when you don't have hard engage, Splyce is not going to opt into fighting you.
And I think that's pretty unforgivable, right? Because you've had the whole play-ins to watch how Splyce want to play. This is a team that was running Yuumi, Claire, Jax, like the list goes on and on and on for the amount of force stalls, even things like Gragas for Levi. Instead, they went away from that completely in the opening games of Worlds.
3 assassins, the goal is to find individual champions and kill them. They were killless until maybe 18 minutes when Levi found a solo kill. So it means the rest of his team was still doing nothing even beyond that point. It took him a long time to get much done. There was a couple of small moments that went okay, but overall, yeah, as to what you were saying, Splyce got to play more their pace, a low kill game where they kept their opponents killless for about 20 minutes, and that is a Splyce victory.
Yeah, I think Splyce looked great. I think one of the kind of bright spots there for GAM was Xerxe. I do think that he was able to maintain, a solid amount of pressure. Even once Splyce had kind of taken over the game and really were running things in the side lane, people were collapsing on him, people were forcing cooldowns out of him, but he was able to maintain a pretty solid CS advantage and have some pressure on the turrets, taking multiple turret plates during the laning phase. But they're going to need a lot more, because that was not a close game, and that was Splyce, dancing to the tune of their own drum.
Yeah, and my standout player was Humanoid, who's, this is his first year playing in an LEC level environment. He's, played a bunch of, lower level matches before, academy type stuff and everything else. But I think to me, he was my biggest player. His solo kills were great. He got off to an early lead and really sort of just pushed his will on everyone else. Now, to break down that win from Splyce,